Recognise the member for Parksville Quality.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Minister. It's nice to be here back again to discuss some of the things that have happened in the tourism industry since the COVID pandemic hit. As the Minister knows, tourism is one of BC's biggest industries. It brings in billions of dollars in annual revenue. It provides hundreds of thousands of jobs to British Columbians. It feeds families, fills communities, and really fuels the economy. So since the pandemic, I know as the Minister has been hearing, we've been hearing, as the leader of the third party said, daily, how desperate they are. We have heard from businesses in the tourism sector that are facing crippling uncertainty, and in some cases, even bankruptcy. Just like the Wilson's Transportation business that the leader of the third party mentioned. There has, to date, been really little reassurance for the tourism operators from this government and from the tourism minister. For example, she's probably going to talk to us about deferral payments and how that's supposed to help the businesses. But the problem with the deferral payments is that after 3 months, even with the phased approach to reopening over the summer, the revenues may not be there to support these businesses enough to pay. And so obviously, what they've been advocating for, what they've been asking for is loans and grants and things that would be better suited for them. So as we move forward, I'd just like to start discussing some of the general impacts that the pandemic has had on tourism and the ministry, because we know that government has obviously had significant revenue gaps of its own as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. But what I'd like to know is how that revenue gap has impacted the ministry's expenses, how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted revenues within the scope of the Ministry of Tourism.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So the budget for 2021 remains the same. There are, for the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, there are 2 areas of impact of note for the member, being PAVCO for the loss of convention business and the closure of BC Place, and Royal BC Museum had some minor impacts due to a temporary closure as well.
Member.
Thank you. Are there any plans in place to support both PAVCO and the museum with additional funds that they have lost out on and move forward in the future?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. We are reviewing, we're early in the process. We're trying to review and understand the impacts to the businesses, and obviously we'll be taking a look at the opportunities moving forward.
Recognise the member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you to the Minister, has there been a job loss associated with both of those entities?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So at PAVCO, there have been temporary layoffs, work shares, and some reductions of hours, which affect around 160 people. There has been, other than the temporary, closure at Royal BC Museum, but there was zero impact to the staff.
Recognised member for Parksville Qualicum.
Thank you, Minister. Has the ministry been given any additional funds due to the COVID-19 pandemic? And if they did receive any funds, how are those funds allocated within the various departments within the ministry?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So the fiscal plan remains intact. In addition, we received $10 million for community destination marketing organizations. There are a number of other asks we have, within government, and we're going through the recovery process, and we will see what funds are allocated from that. But to date, the fiscal plan remains intact, plus the $10 million.
Member Parksville Qualicum.
So that $10 million has all been allocated, and there's nothing left unused to be reappropriated?
Minister.
Yes, the $10 million has been allocated.
Member Columbia River Revels.
Thank you, Chair, and through to the Minister. Could the Minister detail the allocation of those dollars?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. It went to 59 community destination marketing organizations. I'm sure the member doesn't want me to read 59 communities in the list. I'd be happy to send him the list of communities if you'd like.
Through you, Chair.
Member Parksville Qualicum.
If it's a follow-up, the member can go.
Member Columbia River Revelstoke.
Yes, thank you to the Minister. We would appreciate having a detailed breakdown and the exact amount of dollars that went to each one of those organizations within a week.
The Minister is indicating yes to that, member. Thank you. Recognising member Parksville Qualicum.
Thank you, Minister, and through you, Chair, to the Minister. When we look at the key service plan targets for the ministry, what has been changed, or has anything been changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and will those changes be met or targets be met?
Minister.
The service plans will be updated as part of next February's budget.
Member Parksville Qualicum.
So obviously there's been financial impacts within the ministry and within government. And how is the ministry able to forecast the financial impacts going forward when you look at PAVCO or RB, the Royal British Columbia Museum?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to remind the member, of course, I know she's well aware, but the pandemic is ongoing. And so, all the impacts are not known yet. The pandemic is still here with us. Government is working with all of our crowns. The Royal BC Museum, we will be able to forecast their revenues based on attendance, of course, and the attendance levels. And we're working with PAVCO to assess what the impacts are for cancellations and deferrals. Fortunately, in PAVCO, a number of the events were actually deferred and moved to a future date. So there's a positive there, but we're working with PAVCO to address and take a look at mitigation. Thank you.
Recognise member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the Minister, working with PAVCO on these issues as well as other areas requires strategic planning. You mentioned that strategic planning earlier on in this debate. I'm wondering if the Minister can share with us the strategic planning strategies that have been applied and accomplished over the last 4 months since this pandemic broke out. One would think, through you, Chair, to the Minister, that strategic planning is already to roll out.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And to the member, I had previously referred to Destination BC's corporate strategy in our tourism strategic framework. I think the member might have misheard. But, to answer the member's question, 16 weeks is a very short amount of time to shut down parts of our economy and restart it, to address the COVID pandemic. Government did allocate the $5 billion to address immediate impacts. That process is still going on, and we are daily working with industry and all sectors and responding to policy and funding requests as are needed.
Member Columbia River Revelstoke.
Well, thank you, Chair, and through to the Minister. 16 weeks seems like a long time, but for so many of the businesses in British Columbia that are associated with tourism, it's becoming a lifetime. So that doesn't really answer my question through you, Chair, to the Minister. What specific strategic planning has this ministry done in preparing a plan going forward for the tourism industry?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the member knows we continue to work with the sector very closely. We've been having that conversation, and we will be updating our tourism strategic framework, Destination BC's plan. We are working on addressing the requests that the industry has. And once we know what the recovery, once the recovery consultation process finishes, we will be able to have a better idea of what supports are available for the sector for recovery for moving forward, and we'll be able to address more needs then.
I see member for Parksville Qualicum had her hand up. Did the member for Columbia River Revelstoke have a follow-up? Please unmute yourself. Member, please.
That would definitely help. Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, to the minister. So it would seem that there's a timeline issue yet here again. Give us a specific time when this is going to roll out. People can't wait much longer. What's your timeline? Not next week, not the month. When is it going to happen?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and to the member. This is, an unfair characterization of the work being done. Supports have been rolling out this whole time. We are continuing to work with the sector. We know 16 weeks has felt like a lifetime to the tourism industry because we know how difficult they have been impacted. We are going through our process here in government, and we will continue to go through that process, and I will continue to work extremely closely with the tourism sector to address all of their needs. Thank you.
Recognised member for Parksville Qualicum.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Minister. I recognize that there is a process in government, but these are businesses that are struggling to maintain cash flow. With service industries, including restaurants, hospitality, tourism among the hardest hit, and the closure of borders, it's had a dramatic impact on the industry. They need money to help the businesses survive. An estimated 41% will not be profitable this year. Out of 200,000 small businesses in BC, an estimated 10 to 15% won't be around in 2021. And a bulk of those are in the previously thriving tourism sector. So the minister really just needs to describe what the recovery plan looks like. Will there be additional funds coming from the $1.5 billion that government has set aside for the COVID pandemic put into tourism? I know she mentioned it to the leader of the leader of the third party. But this money was set aside months ago, and the industry leaders have been clear and they've been consistent, and the situation is getting worse day by day. The tourism operators expect some kind of relief, some kind of financial support to keep their cash flow going so that they can keep their doors open. So when will the funds be available for things like tourism infrastructure projects or for businesses to keep their doors open?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and to the members. This characteristic is just not accurate of what is happening in the sector. Of course, there is going to be funding provided of the $1.5 billion towards tourism. I just don't even understand the member's question, but the members don't seem to think there was any support provided to date. We know the sector has been impacted greatly, so I'm going to read now for the member. In the interest of time, I've been trying to keep my questions and answers brief, but I'm going to read a long list of supports right now, and we know more is needed. And so the members know that work is being done and that we have been supporting the tourism sector, and we will continue to support the tourism sector. So we included in the $5 billion of relief that was provided in the action plan, a number of measures of supports went to workers and businesses, which include tourism businesses. So we provided the $1,000 of BC emergency benefit for workers. We provided temporary rent supplement, freezing rents and ensuring no one is evicted as part of COVID-19. We enhanced the payments through the BC Climate Action Tax Credit, delayed several tax filing and payment deadlines, including for the MRDT accommodation tax, cutting commercial property tax bills for most businesses and giving businesses more time to pay their property tax bills. We were able to cut those bills by 25%. We partnered with the federal government to provide commercial rent assistance up to 75%, taking the additional steps of protecting businesses and preventing landlords who are eligible for rent assistance programs from evicting tenants. We supported commercial transportation through ICBC by deferring premiums, suspended insurance for idle commercial vehicles, and increased flexibility around vehicle use. We're providing small business customers 3 months of financial relief on their BC Hydro bill. We're ensuring no one can be terminated for COVID-related leaves or absences, including our tourism workers. We extended the temporary layoff period to 24 weeks for COVID-19 related reasons. WorkSafe BC is waiving premiums for employers who approve and receive the CEWS benefit for furlong workers. And we continue to, work and champion the interests of the tourism sector. We're supporting restaurants with liquidity by providing wholesale liquor pricing, the ability to sell liquor with takeout and delivery services. We're helping displaced tourism workers find work in other sectors like agriculture in cooperation with GoToHR. We designated hotels and RV parks as an essential service to house essential service workers and returning residents and vulnerable populations, allowing them to continue operating. We provided flexibility in the use of grant funding for organizations whose events were unable to take place. We supported patio expansions for the hospitality sector to increase patrons while maintaining social distancing. We provided stimulus funding for organizations and communities to support tourism products and destination development. I continue to meet weekly with my federal counterparts to ensure that BC has a strong voice at the table. I advocate for more business support for federal funding and improved program eligibility for BC businesses. We have a number of successes there. In the interest of time, I won't read through those successes, but we have supported also the tourism sector by accelerating disbursements of the 14 resort municipality initiative communities. We launched the Tourism Business Resiliency Network to help businesses navigate the supports available and adapt to the new normal. We provided $10 million to BC to 59 BC community destination marketing organizations so that they can retain critical staff and offset fixed expenses. And through Destination BC, we were able to provide $400,000 to 15 tourism associations to put health and safety measures in place. We were able to provide $130,000 to 130 community-owned visitor centers. We used the $6 million we received from Destination Canada for recovery marketing. This is, there's more here. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to keep reading, but for the member, like the tourism sector has been impacted. We all agree on that. We all agree it's priority. We are doing the work. We are continuing to do the work. Tourism is going to be obviously contemplated in that $1.5 billion in recovery. And we will keep working with the sector to identify and address their needs moving forward. And so any characterization that, the work isn't happening or hasn't been done simply isn't there. We know there's more to do. We are going to continue doing that. And I thank the members for their support of the tourism sector because it is important here in BC.
Member Parksville-Qualicum.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Minister. She did read off a lengthy list of supports, none that actually came from her own ministry, and many of those supports are still the supports that don't actually help the businesses. If the Minister says that she's out there listening to the community, to the industry, is she not hearing what they're saying? The COVID-19 impact report clearly articulates that this isn't about marketing. That's not what businesses need to actually survive. Marketing shouldn't be the focus, rather financial assistance like grants or lowest interest loans. Those are the things we're talking about. They need liquidity. What is the point of tourism marketing if there are no companies around or left standing to actually market? By putting the money into marketing, you've only addressed the demand side of tourism. So what are your plans to support the supply side of tourism to ensure that the businesses are still around to serve the tourists now that we're in phase 3 and we're starting to move about, and hopefully one day soon we'll be able to start welcoming international tourists? What is your plan, Minister, to support these businesses?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And to the member, I have recognized, I did with the previous, with the leader of the Green Party as well. I absolutely understand liquidity is important. A number of those supports did provide liquidity that I read out, did provide liquidity to businesses. And so for the members to say they don't just simply is not accurate. We do understand liquidity is arguably the number one request coming in from the tourism sector. We understand that. And that is part of the ongoing process of the $1.5 billion. And so respectfully to the member, we are working on this. We're working closely with the tourism sector and we are listening, and thank you.
Recognise member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the Minister. With the money that was allocated to the DMOs through the MRDT tax, the Minister if she doesn't know, she should know, that the allocation to those 59 communities really did nothing but keep the lights on. So what is, through you, Chair, to the Ministry, to the Minister, what is the Ministry's plan to make those shortfalls or make up those shortfalls to those DMOs that basically have nothing other than to keep the lights on through the amount of money that was given? It's appreciated, but it's nowhere near enough.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. And the member is correct. The intent of the funding was so that those organizations were able to keep the lights on and keep their staff employed. Was very important for us, so that those organizations would be ready to welcome visitors to their communities all across the province once we were able to move into phase 3, which we are. And so the CDMOs were very thankful of that support. We do realize they're in a difficult position moving forward. As is the entire tourism sector. There's a lot to address. So for the CDMOs, some of the work to date being done, again, as with everything with the tourism sector, there's more to do. This has been 16 weeks. There is a long road ahead of us as well. And so today, to date, some of the work that's been done is the $6 million from Destination Canada that we helped secure will be divided up amongst the CDMOs. 1.5 additional million additional funds in co-op marketing has been provided through DBC to the CDMOs. Destination BC has shifted their marketing from international to domestic to drive tourism into the areas and increase the revenues. And so, this is some of the work being done to date, and we will continue working with the sector.
Members, I saw there had been hands up and they've been lowered. Are there any more questions? Member Parksville-Qualicum. Member, please unmute.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being understanding as we navigate this world where we are not working side by side in the same room and working remotely from each other, and recognizing when we can take turns to speak. So through you to the Minister, obviously there's an estimated 70% revenue drop in the tourism industry. And without that direct help from government, be it from the remaining $1.5 billion in COVID relief funding, or a tax holiday from the EHT or PST, or some sort of incentive program to get more British Columbians traveling within British Columbia, it's still looking pretty grim for many of the tourism operators. So I'm just wondering if the Minister can advise the House what tax relief measures that the Minister has advocated for the tourism industry to the Minister of Finance or to the Premier.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. As the member knows, I will continue to be a strong advocate for the needs of the tourism industry, including to all of my colleagues. Any tax questions she should be asking the Minister of Finance. I know she's asking what my advocacy is to the Minister of Finance. Really, the member just needs to know I continue to advocate and will continue to advocate. I have heard the list of concerns and suggestions from businesses. The members opposite have put forward numerous letters to both myself and to the Premier with their thoughts. They are all part of the mix. So thank you, member.
Member Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the minister. My colleague just got kicked out of the system, so she's going to be coming back, so I'll carry the ball. I want to talk a little bit through you, Chair, to the minister about planning. The minister talks about 16 weeks as being a very short period of time. It's almost like an excuse that it's been such a short period of time. Yet my questions are going to come around planning. Quebec, as a good example, just came out with a $750 million program that was going to be spread over 2 years. And that's for both supply and demand tourism. Alberta has come out with what they call a cooperative investment program. The Atlantic provinces are well into this already. And yet here we are 16 weeks later, and British Columbia does not have a formal tourism plan. So through you, Chair, to the minister, I'd like to get the minister's perspective on what's taking so long, aside from doing surveys, what's taking so long to present a plan to British Columbians?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. This is just reframing of a question I've already answered. A large part of the piece we are waiting for is the recovery process that's ongoing. So, member, question is asked and answered, and I'd love to keep talking about some new subjects, please. Thank you.
Member, please unmute.
Sorry, it was said I was off, but go figure. Through you, Chair, to the minister, I would strongly disagree. It's the same question. The question that I'm asking is that why has there been no formal plan put forward? Here we are 16 weeks later, and you can excuse it as way as you want, saying that it's ongoing. We're waiting for a survey after 16 weeks. So seriously, the question is simple. What has your ministry been doing in terms of putting a plan together over the past 16 weeks, aside from the survey that was just released?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And to the member, I've addressed this a couple times now. We're continuing to do the work. I've outlined that in previous answers. I'll outline for the members some of the areas we're focusing and have been focusing on today. We've been focusing on response, recovery, and resilience. We as a government provided the $5 billion in support for businesses across BC and for families and for peoples. So relief was initial part. We shifted marketing to a domestic marketing campaign. So we addressed the needs, immediate needs of where our people could travel. We continue to protect our international spaces and the work being done there in our international markets to ensure that, when we are in a position to welcome visitors again from outside the province or from outside the country, we will be able to do that. We continue to work closely with the sector as we work towards recovery and what that looks like. That's the process that's ongoing right now. We continue to work on resilience in the tourism sector, as I addressed before in earlier questions. We continue to work on destination development and focusing on building our supply side in the area. So, remember, this is the same question, and I'm happy to keep giving these answers that, that 16 weeks is a short amount of time, I'm saying, in the long journey that is pandemic. We have done a marathon and a sprint all in the same amount of time in those 16 weeks. And we still have a long path ahead of us. And tourism is going to be part of that long journey. And so we are continuing to do the work. We will have more information when we know our support's coming out of recovery. But this is just some of the work that's ongoing. And so to the member, thank you for asking your questions, but we will keep working with the sector directly to address their needs.
That would be me still, Chair? Chair's muted.
Member.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, to the Minister. This is a couple times you've talked through you to the Minister, has spoken about the supply side and all the work that the Ministry is doing in the supply side of tourism. We would be really interested if she could break down that work and what that actually looks like, because I'll be really honest with you, Chair, through you to the Minister. That's not, we're hearing through the town halls, the multiple regional town halls that we've held over the last 16 weeks. And that's not what we're hearing from the tour operators. So please share with us what you've actually done on the supply side of tourism.
Minister.
Thank you. So I gave a fulsome answer previously to the leader of the Green Party. I'll provide some additional supports. We did some additional information for the member. We did accelerate our disbursements of the 14 RMI community funding to make sure that we are increasing their capacity and revenues and making sure that they continue to work on the projects, which are supply side within their communities. We provided 14 million to 150 projects to support economic development and recreational activities for British Columbians throughout the province, and that's through rural community development grants. 98 of those projects supported tourism destination development initiatives, totaling almost $9 million. For examples, train networks, camping grounds, airport expansions, connectivity, cultural centers, signage, tourism master planning. We have active transportation grants providing $9 million to cost share, 23 infrastructure projects, and 21 active transportation network plans province-wide. These develop multimodal transportations that benefit visitors and improve destination competitive advantage. We have the MA grants as well, community culture recreation projects, which our government is a part of, rural and northern communities, infrastructure grants. So in CCR, we did $34.4 million in 39 projects. RNC, we provided $8.1 million to 15 projects. 90% of these funded projects supports facilities, that support our visitors. It's arts and culture centers, recreation, sports centers, boat launch facilities, First Nation longhouses, art centers, trail systems. We have a cross-government approach to tourism, and we are supporting tourism. We have our 20 destination development areas that we will continue to focus on and work on in the future. And so there's just a taste to the member of some of the supply. We know there's more to do. I will continue saying to the members, this is to date. We have more to do. This is a long journey as well ahead of us, and we will continue working with the sector.
Member.
Thank you, Chair, and through to the Minister. It is definitely going to be a long journey. That's certainly something we can attest to. But from what I've understood, some of the projects that you've just cited, there's still no plan. There is still no formal plan for tourism recovery. So we'll just leave it at that and read that into the record. Some parts of the industry, like the seasonal operators and guide and wilderness viewing companies or ventures, have few options and very minimal supports from government, as they do not qualify for federal and or provincial assistance programs. And if you talk to outdoor adventure tourism companies, and we certainly have throughout our town halls that we've hosted throughout the province, that wildlife viewing tours are simply no replacement for those canceled tours from European or American guests. So we're talking a lot of potential bankruptcies in the future. How are they supposed to support themselves at this time with no federal or provincial support? So through you, Chair, to the Minister, what consideration has the Minister given for these businesses, and what's her plan to support them?
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And to the member, I am meeting with those organizations on an ongoing basis and numerous times over this pandemic, and continue to meet with them and hear from them directly what they are saying to me directly. Obviously, liquidity is a huge part of that, as I have already addressed in our conversations, over this past hour, and that we will continue to address that, or to work with the organizations and put that into the recovery process moving forward. We also continue, just for the members' knowledge, to bring up liquidity as a key piece of the conversations that we have with our federal government counterparts to ensure that the programs that are being offered through the federal government, members of those organizations are able to apply for. There's been difficulties with the tourism sector in the, in a number of areas of these programs. The ability to prove lost revenue, those type of issues. There's been a number of them. So we continue to work with the federal government as well. And so I understand the members' concern about the adventure tourism sector. They have been extraordinarily hard hit in this. We are working with them directly. I am speaking with them directly, and we will continue to work with them and try and identify and address their needs through the recovery process. Thank you.
Member Columbia River Revelstoke, I'll ask you for one more question, and then we'll be taking a recess after the Minister has responded.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. And through you to the Minister, we do agree on one thing: liquidity is an issue for all tourism businesses and operators today. And you, through you, Chair, to the Minister just said that she's meeting with adventure tourism operators on an ongoing basis. If the Minister could take a minute and just explain some of the outcomes of those conversations and what solutions that her ministry has offered to these folks in those industries, that would give them some reflection of hope for the oncoming months.
Minister.
Thank you, Chair. So to the member, there's a number of pieces I could pull off the list that I read into record before, but it's on record, it's in there. But if the member's asking, has there been a specific adventure tourism package created? No, there has been not yet today. There is the recovery process that we're going for. We know that the tourism sector is very hard hit. We know all the concerns that the sector is bringing forward. We're feeding that into the process, and we will do our best to address, as many concerns as we can from the tourism sector. Thank you.